Let's get one thing out of the way. Deshaun Watson is here to stay. Whether you like it or not, Watson is the Browns quarterback and he ain't going anywhere. Now, I've already made a video about Deshaun Watson and the allegations put forth against him. So if you're here for me to talk about that, then how about going and watching this video? Alright, now that that's out of the way, it's time for us to talk about the football side of Deshaun Watson, which has been pretty interesting as of late. I mean, the guy hadn't started in an NFL game for, 700 days. Yeah, that's basically a 2-year break. So everyone knew the guy was going to be rusty, but no one knew just how much of that spark he still had in him. Which brings us to Sunday, December 4th, 2022, when Deshaun Watson made his first start since the allegations. And on that day, the Cleveland Browns would match up against Deshaun Watson's former team, the Houston Texans, in what was a must-win game for Cleveland, if they wanted any shot at keeping their playoff hopes alive for the 22 season. Now, the reason this game was so dire is because of one man, Jacoby Brissett. See, the Browns went into the season knowing that they weren't going to have their franchise guy behind the helm until after Week 12, which meant that they were going to need a semi-competent QB under center for the first 12 weeks, whose only job was to manage the game and keep their record to near 500, hopefully over. Now, going into the season, Jacoby was looking like the best option on the roster, considering the fact that Cleveland had just shipped out their former number 1 overall pick, Baker Mayfield, in what seemed to be a pretty nasty breakup on the outside looking in. Now, as competent as Jacoby Brissett has been throughout his career, there's no guarantee that he was going to be able to do enough to keep the Browns' playoff hopes alive, at least until Watson would hopefully swoop in and save the day. This suggested that the Browns might need to make another move for QB to be Deshaun's stand-in for 12 weeks. And this led to rumors stirring around the NFL world that the Browns might be looking into Jimmy Garoppolo before the season. Now, Jimmy himself had just officially announced that him and the Niners agreed that trading him was the best option. However, if you're watching this video, then you probably know by now that that deal never worked out between the two teams before the season, and any chance of Jimmy G possibly getting traded to the Browns mid-season quickly died after Week 2 when Trey Lance had a season-ending injury, and Garoppolo getting his starting job back now that Lance was done. Plus, there was no real competition behind him, at least that we knew of at the time. I say all of that to say that the Cleveland Browns weren't forced into it, but they kind of had to stick with Jacoby Brissett. And looking back at it now, going with Jacoby wasn't the best move by any means. I mean, I didn't think sticking with Jacoby was a good move in the first place, but anyway. After 12 weeks with Jacoby, the Browns were at a pretty meh record of 5-7 and on the outside looking in of the playoff picture, which put Watson in a pretty hard spot going into Week 13. I mean, man was going to have to win at least 5 out of 6 games to give the Browns a fighting chance. So, when it was time for his highly anticipated first start of the season, everyone's eyes were glued to the game. But they weren't for long, because the game got pretty out of hand toward the end, which was expected considering the fact that the Texans only had one game where they won heading into Week 13. Anyway, it wasn't Deshaun who won Cleveland that game. In fact, if anything, he made it harder for the Browns to win, seeing how he went ahead and threw for only 130 yards on 12 completions, which is wild. The guy threw for 12 completions. What was he doing all game? Jack shit, that's what. However, the defense did come to play for the Browns, as they were the only ones to show up for both teams all game, with Cleveland getting 2 interceptions on Kyle Allen. Not that that's much of an accomplishment. I mean, the dude had a QBR of 3.1 that game. A tree could have a better QBR than that. Plus, the defense gave the team another boost, forcing 3 fumbles throughout the game, recovering 2 of them, with one of them getting swooped up by Denzel Ward for a 4-yard return to the house for Cleveland's second touchdown of the day. And if you're wondering how they got there first, well, it wasn't through the offense, that's for sure. In fact, it was actually a 76-yard punt return by Donovan Peoples-Jones. But Cleveland got the win, and Deshaun finally got some on-the-field action, which is really what the Browns cared about. And since then, Deshaun has started in 2 more games for the Browns, make that 3 games, with 2 of them being against division rivals, who have had a better season than them, to say it lightly. With the first of the two matches being against the division-leading Bengals, who, to be fair, were heavily favored going into the game, so them winning wasn't a shocker. However, Deshaun really stepped it up for Cleveland, throwing 250 plus yards while also getting off a 13-yard touchdown pass to David Njoku. In his third start this season, the Browns matched up against the Lamarless Ravens, which meant that beating them was going to be a whole lot of a hell easier. And it kinda was. I mean, the Browns did get the win, but again, it was mostly due to their defense, which held the Ravens to only 3 points. Though Deshaun had another sub-200 game through the air. I mean, he was able to come away with a touchdown pass, this time to Donovan Peoples-Jones, but it was for 3 yards, so come on. And things started to go real south when Week 16 came around, as the Browns went head-to-head versus the New Orleans Saints, where all of Cleveland's playoff hopes immediately died, as the team fell to 6-9 with almost no chance of playing deep into January. And the loss to the Saints would yet again be the result of another Deshaun Watson masterclass of being ass. And at this point, I'm sure you could assume Watson's stat line. Yeah, that's right. Another 130-yard game through the air on barely 15 completions. What are you doing all game to get 15 completions? This brings us to current day, where the Browns now sit at 6-9 with 2 games left on the season and sitting 2 games out of the playoffs. I mean, the chances are so small. So if Cleveland wants a spot in the mix, then not only do they need to win out, but there also needs to be a little help from whoever plays the Chargers and Dolphins. And let's be real, that's not happening. I mean, Deshaun was put in an impossible situation to win this year after Jacoby screwed him. So if you're a Cleveland fan, it's looking like y'all should turn your attention to the draft. Oh wait, you ain't got a pick. Fucking dumbasses traded it for Deshaun. Anyway, that's about it for the video. And if you stayed this long, then how about liking and subscribing to the channel for more shit like this? Deuces.